Nice crowd. Thank you all for being here. And just Judge Stevens there, the first political speech that I ever gave, I had been called to go to jury duty, and I had 3 different items written down when you fill out the form as to what you do for a living, and one of them was running for office, and one of the attorneys asked me to elaborate on that, and I actually stood up in front of a courtroom full of people and stood on a soapbox for a minute. So thank you for the first speech I ever gave in my political career there. CRT, where to start with all of that? Geez, it has been one of the craziest 3 letters I've ever come across in my life, for what it all ended up doing to me and upsetting my household and all of that fun stuff. I won't get into all of that. I'll start with the 1619 project, which a lot of it seems based on. I don't know how many of you, or if any of you have ever read it, but basically the 1619 project, it's an amalgam of different writers, most of them probably in the last 20 or 30 years, that have put together a lot of different stories that I can't figure out if they're real stories or not real stories. They certainly could be true. They relate to the treatment of slaves when they came over here. They go into some pretty rough things to read, things you wouldn't want to happen to your worst enemy. So there is, on an emotional level, there's definitely some validity to people's concerns about I guess the thought process is, how do we relate to others that have never been through this, how it feels to us, all right? I'm a white guy that grew up in the South. I don't know what it's like to be black growing up in the South, or anywhere else for that matter. One of the big parts there in the tenets that they have is that this country, this is where it gets a little tough for me to swallow. They say that the country would not be the same, or would not be what it is today, if we had never had slavery. You could interpret that, I guess, multiple ways. It would not be, it's kind of like the internet. I got into a discussion a few years ago about the internet. Somebody said the government created it. I said they would have figured out the internet without the government. Kind of the same thing with the 1619 project. If we had not had slaves at the start of our founding, we would have figured it out, we would have made our way. Since we do have reporters here, who I don't really trust anymore these days, no offense, I've been ramrodded by you a couple of times. But the whole issue, what I've read, and I'm a pretty good student of history. I studied a good bit of it in college, studied it in high school, have continued reading it. I find it interesting. What I've seen, comparing what I know about history and what I see in the 1619 project, is it seems like they weave little bits of truth in with big stories that are heartstrings. I mean, it's touching. It's really, there are parts of it that really make you go, oh God, that's terrible, but not necessarily factually based. It's turned into a course of study as I've dug into this a little bit more. Apparently this started about 30 or 40 years ago. Small project, and it has kind of grown. It is taught rather broadly, as I understand it, in our law schools across the country these days. It's just kind of sprung up all of a sudden because it started to show up in our schools, in the K through 12 schools. And that's what has gotten the legislature's attention. That's what's gotten the national attention. That's what got us involved with dealing with it. Are there anybody got any questions about the 1619 project? I'm sure there's parts of it that I didn't hit. I'm certainly no expert on it, but if anybody's got any questions, I can try to answer one if you've got one or two. All right.
Not so much on 1619, but the critical race theory is a Marxist creation from the 80s in Europe.
Okay. Yeah, there's that too. It's built on Marxist principles. The whole bunch of it is built on Marxist principles, which in and of itself is dangerous. And some of the stuff that it teaches that one group is superior to another based on race, sex, creed, all these different things. Or it teaches that you are oppressed. Get into those Marxist theories. You are either one of those. You are either an oppressor or or you are the oppressed. And basically what the Tennessee General Assembly said is, this isn't healthy to tell kids. And I would go as far to say that in some states in this country, if I as a parent taught my child that, I wouldn't be surprised if Children's Services didn't show up at my house and say, hey, you're mentally abusing this child. I mean, that's how I could see that happen. To me, that's a possibility. I'll give you some of the things. I won't read all of it to you, but I'll read to you real quick some of the things that are actually in the bill. We're not going to teach, we're not going to allow to be taught that one race or sex is inherently superior to another race or a sex. Sounds easy enough. An individual, by virtue of their race or sex, is privileged, racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or subconsciously. You're going to tell children that. 5 or 6 year old children, they have no idea what any of that means. That an individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment because of their race or sex. It's almost, in this crowd, I would say, common sense. That's the word I was going for. What else? And I could go on. You can't teach that meritocracy, achieving on your own hard work. You can't teach that that's racist or sexist because you may be an oppressor or an oppressed. And it goes on, things like that. And my Democrat colleagues got real upset that we would bring such a bill. And again, I'm sitting here with common sense going, what sense does it make to tell a child that they are oppressed or that they are an oppressor? What kind of stage does that set for that child over time? Nothing good comes from that. It's programming. It's Marxist. It's dangerous. And I am convinced that one of the reasons that they do it, I probably ought not say this with Brian's camera and the reporter out here, but I'm already in this water, aren't I?
Just a reminder, I'll say it.
I'm
Gets twisted
convinced
anyway.
that it is just another tool to continue to tear us into more and more little divided up sections, one group angry at another group, so that we can continue to bring, I don't know what the end goal, end game is to all of this, but there's nothing healthy about any of it. There's nothing good in any of that that is beneficial to our republic over time, nothing that's beneficial to our children over time, and certainly nothing that's going to help us move forward as a country over time. I could probably keep trying to ramble on about it. I don't want to go too far. I don't want to stop short. So I guess I'll ask again, are there any questions about any of this? Anybody got any thoughts?
Well, I've had, when someone objects to this statute, you mean you're in favor of teaching children that blacks are inferior?
Yeah. That's what they're saying.
No,
And it's
that's not what they're saying. That's not what they want to say. The blacks are inferior.
no.
But that is barred by the statute.
But that's what they're teaching. That is what has been going on. But it's been kind of like, y'all have heard the term mission creep. It's been creeping in a little bit at a time, more and more, and then I don't know what changed this year, but for some reason it popped up. Yes, sir.
I was just thinking, to re-paraphrase what you said, and I thought in a more effective manner, might be to say that critical race theory is a thinly veiled attempt to weaponize and amplify racial tensions by a particular party in an attempt to weaken the Republican Party. It is purely for political purposes.
That last part, I'd say it is political purposes.
And I think that's better.
At what point do we quit denying that we're a nation of war?
Oh gosh, yeah, I'll leave that up to the pundits on TV. That's not.
That's what it appears.
These are interesting times we are walking in. There's no doubt about it. And depending on the historians that you read, talking about republics like ours, they've got a lifespan. It's about 230 to 250 years. And I hate the thought of this, folks, but we are smack dab in the middle of that little lifespan. Again, it depends on who you read. Different titles, different articles, different writers that will tell you different things, but that's about the average. The next question for me is, then what? I always think about Britain. Britain's been around a long time. They've been through occupations, they've been through wars, they've been through all kinds of internal strife and plagues and everything. The people are still there, the dirt's still there, they're still making it, they're doing okay. Looking down the road 20 years, 50 years, who's going to carry the torch of Republican government? And I don't mean Republican, us Republicans in this room, I mean a republic. What is a republic? It's a constitutionally formatted set of laws that everybody's expected to live by. We don't show favoritism, we don't show preference. We're supposed to live by the rule of law that everybody's agreed to. We can disagree on everything else, but we've got to agree on that one thing. And folks, it feels like these days we can't even agree on that anymore. It's a little bothersome, but I didn't mean to, again, I get on these rolls and I don't mean to. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Lafferty, for your leadership on this. I'm a former Yankee from New England, been here a year. It's way more evil than the good folks of East Tennessee understand. This is part of, CRT is part of a social emotional learning. You can look that one up and read through the lines. These people are putting negative stuff on children starting in kindergarten. In my home state of Connecticut, they had drag queen story hour for 5-year-olds. The Senate Majority Leader in the state actively promoted it and called people bigots who didn't want their children being exposed to that at 5 years old. And they're spreading this stuff here. It's the complete antithesis of our East Tennessee values. And I want to again thank you for standing up. It's a hard, you're going to take a lot of heat because these people are nasty. You are absolutely doing the right thing, and it is part of a whole bigger problem. And I just wanted to share that because the reason why I'm in this room tonight, and there's other people like me, is we got sick and tired of this stuff where we grew up, where we came from, and we came to this place because it's exactly what America has been and staying to be. And again, thank you for, you're doing the right thing.
No, thank you for that.
Thank you.
I have a question over here.
Yes, ma'am.
I think for anybody that wants to hear more about it, one of the places where I have found the most articulate voices are the Black conservatives like Burgess Owens and Candace Owens. Obviously they're not related, but they both speak out on it and they speak about it very clearly and are very articulate on it. And I think it's a great place to go if you want to learn more about what it is and the damage it's doing. And not to one-up Sean, but I left Southern California where they're teaching middle schoolers that abstinence, the way to avoid pregnancy, because they're not allowed to teach abstinence, is to have anal sex. That's in middle school with props, and it's a mandate from the state, so schools that have tried to avoid it have been sued. And that's coming. So we have to be active. I'm thankful for people like Sean and everybody in the room that's here to support candidates and all of you that are running.
So many things these days are so upside down and backwards. Yes, sir.
I don't know if you've heard this, but I read about a week and a half ago, the Nashville mayor is having a city public library. Apparently there's a rather world famous drag queen from Nashville. But they're having readings for elementary school kids in the public libraries right now in Nashville. I think that's confirmed, but I wouldn't stake my life on it. But don't think this is a problem with Southern California, or I mean, we got Al Sharpson speaking in our universities out there that way. This is a right here, right now problem.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. It's a real thing, no doubt. It's interesting stuff.
Justin, I was just going to say, if y'all haven't noticed, I'm just going to put this out here. I've got several degrees, don't give a crap about that, but if you look at the science, how it's changed in 2020, science changed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. So the educational system has been building on that, but at the same time, the science that you're talking about that they used to prevent these kids from seeing, they've changed that science now. You can look at, I mean, this is not a conspiracy or anything like that. You look at how teaching has changed over the years and how they handle things over the years. It's gotten better. Okay. Talk to some of the old teachers, actually have a conversation with a teacher. I have a family of teachers that actually talk about it at family reunion, which we're about to talk about education, which leads back in. But psychologically, in my family dinners, okay, I'm just gonna put this out here. I'm on video.
No,
My
okay.
uncle enjoyed he enjoyed wearing a white sheet. If y'all know what I mean, okay? He was in the Klan. Not proud of that. My brother, biracial marriage. I have gay cousins. I have other biracial marriage. Those kids play out there in the front yard. They have no clue. They're 5, 10 years old. We had no idea growing up, okay? Because that's not psychologically something we understand. That's not changed from Freud, from Jung, all these people. I actually have a psychology degree.
Rob, we
That's
need
where
to
it's
get
at.
to our speaker.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Rob Gray. I'd like to recognize Ed Schaus.